Hello, hello. Welcome, Portal to Ascension family. Hope you all doing beautifully. This is Neil with Portal to Ascension. Good to be here back with you guys. And today we have another amazing individual, an amazing presenter, gifted channel, intuitive, and so much more that I'm going to be bringing forward on Portal to Ascension and we'll be interviewing. And her name is Deanna Divine, and you might have seen her on maybe a panel or so on Portal to Ascension. We've been connected for quite a few years, but now we're starting to work together. Today is kind of like the milestone moment of us working together. She is going to be on Portal Ascension quite often, and she's a part of the New Living Expo. And here's the website down there, newlivingexpo.com. Fully launched, tickets on sale, epic event, Northern California. We have around 100 speakers, and I got to tell you, the management of this thing is pretty intense. 100 speakers, 125 exhibitors. We're aiming for 3,000 plus attendees and really aiming to make this the largest consciousness gathering in the world. And also an event where we really go into conscious collaboration over competition. And actually, in about a week, I'll be doing a live stream on YouTube called Conscious Collaboration Over Competition, where I'll be speaking with another event producer that we work together in helping share each other's events and sharing what we're both doing, because ultimately we're all in this together. We're doing this for the same reasons, so we should share resources and connect and do so. And for this event up in the Bay Area, we have some amazing organizations that are coming to be a part of this, from the Psychedelic Society of San Francisco to the Pyramids Organization and Society of India, all coming to represent. And it's going to be not only educational, inspirational, theatrical, because I love theater. We're going to have some theater in there, but it's going to be very entertaining as well with music, 8 simultaneous rooms going on of speakers, panel discussions. We have a discussion on AI. We have a discussion on UFOs. We have an ancient civilizations panel. And then just all of us really having a great time together in Marin County in San Rafael, California, about 40 minutes from Oakland, in a most one of the probably one of the most beautiful, pristine areas in the whole of California, because there's so much nature there, and you would not know you're like literally like 20, 30 minutes from a city because you're just surrounded by beautiful hills and greenery and all that. So April 17th to 19th of this year. And our presenter today not only is going to be on Portal to Ascension, but she's also going to be an exhibitor and a speaker at the New Living Expo. And who we have is Deanna Divine, and she is a soul guide, multidimensional channel, galactic shaman, quantum educator devoted to awakening humanity's multidimensional potential and restoring energetic sovereignty. She's a best-selling author of Mastering Quantum Creation and the creator of Quantum Ancient Codes Oracle Deck, and she's the founder of Source Language Institute, where she teaches source codes, pure light language as a living transmission for multidimensional integration. With over 25 years of experience, she brings quantum science, shamanic wisdom, and psychological insight to create personal pathways of transformation. And Deanna utilizes sound healings, frequent Phoenix Rising Kundalini activation workshops, private sessions, QHHT, quantum healing technique, quantum attunement, galactic Akashic records reading, and more. And she supports awakening souls in reclaiming the divine blueprint and multidimensional gifts. She also shares teachings through her podcast as well, guys. Soul Communication is the name of her podcast, available on all major platforms. And you can find out more about her at Diana, Diana, divine.com. So let's bring Deanna on. Welcome, Deanna.
Hi, Neil. Such an
It's
honor
good to
to
see
be
you.
here.
Yeah,
You
thank you for
too.
being here. So before we get into it, we spoke right before we started, and we're going to do something we've never done before, and you're going to pull a card for our interview today. And
Oh,
is this
yeah.
your deck that you're pulling from?
That is my deck. Yes. So
Nice.
let's
Okay,
pull a
let's do a
card
full
and
screen
see
view.
what the topic wants to guide us.
See what we got.
So, all right. Let's see. Oh, we got the Phoenix. The alchemy
Nice.
through transmutation. So that is the
Mm,
energy pretty much of the year, I feel, where we headed. You are in the fire of becoming. Let all that no longer serves burn, so your next form may rise encoded with light.
love it. Let's just speak on that for a second. What does alchemy what does it say? Alchemy for transmutation, right? So
Alchemy through transmutation.
what
Yeah.
is alchemy? right? Because we know about alchemy of different types of metals that can create other metals. So, what is the alchemy when it comes to our own emotional being, our own spiritual being? What are we alchemizing to become something else?
Yeah, great question. And I think this last year, the year of the snake, it was year 9 where we completed a cycle. But I think many of us were also completing soul contracts, programs that we were running that were no longer serving anymore. And to alchemize that, it means kind of shifting it from one state, from one density into another density, which is lighter density. So many were releasing and shedding or closing and collapsing timelines or contracts that were not serving them. So it's like if you think of the phoenix, right? We're all familiar with the phoenix, the bird that is going into the fire and it transmutes, it transforms completely into a new version. So the alchemization process is really shifting from one state to another state. So that's how I see. And so
Mm,
transmutation, I think, is something that we do all the time. We're just not aware that we do. We constantly change the states of frequency. And as we multidimensional beings, we constantly tap into different frequency bandwidths.
yeah. So technically, we're always alchemizing because even, I guess, it's even taking thoughts and information from the external world, reflecting it within ourselves, and discerning what it is an alchemization process.
Correct. And our nervous system, has been only perceiving or realizing information at a certain level of perception. And I think what's happening right now, with the solar flare activity and a lot of the energy, and you and I love to talk about the galactic journey we're going through as a solar system. And I think as we in a photonic belt right now, we're receiving a lot of light particles. The alchemization is also happening to our DNA. We are mutating one way or another because our system, our nervous system, has to hold more light. So when we talk about, a lot of people love the terminology ascension symptoms. So and that just means the physicality is catching up to hold that light, and some people have easier time with that, some people have harder time, so they things flare up for them. But ultimately that's just a alchemization to a point where you tune to the frequency and no more of that needed, because now you have more space, more geometry in your body to hold that light.
All right, so I know you love science and also multidimensionality. You like to bridge the
Mhm.
worlds like I do as well. And you mentioned photon belt. Maybe we could spend a moment here for you to speak about the
Sure.
science of what's happening with the photon belt.
Well, you probably know the scientific, explanation better than I do. All I know is that the photon belt just, allows more light particles to, release into our system. So for me, I see it as just waves and particles. So
Mhm.
everything in the quantum nature, and we are waves and particles. The waves collapse, and we are particles. So we're just manifestations of the wave. So
Mhm.
as we are just moving through a space that is actually moving closer to the galactic center of the Milky Way, it just allows, I believe, more of these light and quantum waves to kind of penetrate and be part of our reality. So scientifically, I'd love you to explain that because I don't know the specifics of photonic. I just
Yeah.
know that energetically, from light body perspective, there's just a lot of reintegration that is happening, and that's a lot of work that I'm doing with people right now because they having sometimes really hard time, being on earth, being in this frequent bandwidth that we're moving into. And some souls exit altogether because it's just a lot for them to go through this change that we right now.
Yeah, well, I love what you shared because you broke down the science in a way that's palatable for anybody to really understand what's going on, because the science sometimes gets so heady, and really what's happening is that everything is waves, and these waves consist of information and codes, and
Right.
we're moving into a part of the galaxy that has a different type of frequency, a different type of information, right? For us to be able to obviously shift in consciousness and grow up and wake up to a whole new reality.
Yeah, I mean, if I think about other advanced civilizations as other star beings, you know, they just have a different body type. We are carbon based, and they are more crystalline based. So for them, just the composition, I think, of their body is already allowing those light particles to integrate and be held in that frequency bandwidth. Since
Yeah.
we are still carbon based, that's what I'm saying. We are mutated. I think there is some mutation that's happening that probably science hasn't even fully caught up with. And then we can talk about the DNA strands altogether, the dormant DNA strands that are reactivating as well. So I think all of this, as you said, this space we in, even cosmologically, is assisting in this expansion and evolution.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So, I feel that I went to a Bashar channeling a while ago, and he said that first contact is happening through channeling. And it really resonated with me. I've been parroting the same words ever since. And it's because, like, it makes sense that we would start communicating telepathically or through our consciousness with beings before they land so that we can kind of prep ourselves for it. And in a simulated reality that, that could happen. So if that's the case, and I know you're in a galactic channel and you've been doing this for a while, and you also know of different channels, I'm curious about the mind compared to the channel. So since you work as a multidimensional galactic channel, how do you personally discern between true galactic communication and projections of the human mind?
Wow, what a great question. I think it takes training. Discernment is really important word here because as you go into the channel, you have to establish the contact first. And a lot of my channeling is through myself. So I am ensuring that I am also in the pure kind of state, and my high self is filtering. And so I call it also even energetic handshakes. There are some beings that I don't want to communicate with. Sometimes they try to communicate with you, but they meet some of my criteria, which is, to be in a certain frequency bandwidth, to be in service to others versus service to self. On your channel, I know there's people talking about archons. There's so many beings in the, especially lower astral, they can communicate with you, but they don't necessarily serve me. The aspects I talk to are the ones that either, of my future parallel selves that give me a lot of guidance, or other beings that in the same kind of frequency match that I am at, that, the Syrian beings, the Lyran beings, the Andromedan beings that are of these light councils that have been from the beginning supporting this project called Earth. I mean, this is a very long project, and I remember now my past lives where, as an Andromedan self, I've been here on Earth before there was any seeding, where we just lay in the grids, where we just preparing Tara for what was coming. So there's also different. We have to also understand timelines. There's different versions of timelines. There's, Earth as we know today in 3D, but there is the future, Earth of 7-dimensional Gaia. There's Tara in 5th dimension. So there's different interactions we have, but also interactions with different timelines. But internally for me, I guess it's practice. And at this point, like, I don't question it. I just know when it's true information, it resonates with my body, it resonates with my soul and who I am. And if it's in resonance and it's clear, yes, then this is true information, versus if the ego is flaring up. I think what you're referring to is like the mind. Is it the ego that's talking? So when you have this inner union within between the ego and your higher self, your divine will, there's no longer a question, because you fully integrate it and you operate from your heart portal. And when you activate in your heart, then I feel that question doesn't become relevant, because you have very clear knowing of what is true and what is not. Hope that explained.
Yeah, it definitely does. Now, you mentioned Andromeda. Are we speaking about the galaxy Andromeda?
Both. So the Andromeda that I mentioned is Zenate systems. That's Andromeda constellation. And but I also remember that I did initially come from Andromeda galaxy, so I do have connection to like the original source, I would say, of the Milky Way, which I believe is where we actually started seeding the idea even of creation of this galaxy.
Is there is are the Andromedans, because you don't hear too many people. There's obviously Andromedan starseeds, every now and then you hear it, but you definitely hear more of other races. I would say Palladian starseeds number one, Syrian starseeds next, Arcturian starseeds next. Why are there fewer Andromedan starseeds? Is that like lineage only incarnates here in specific numbers, or do you know why?
Yeah, the Andromedans, we are very highly vibrational. So I think in terms of incarnation, I started in the Lyra system, and we in well, let's back up. So from the Andromeda galaxy, there was a group of co-creators that decided to create Milky Way and to create this experience. So it was a volunteer group that came here. Prior to Andromeda galaxy, not even from this universe. So it's very ancient, a different universe entirely. So there was a whole story of how we even ended up in Andromeda Galaxy. But in Andromeda Galaxy, there were different beings coming together from other universes, and there was this co-creator group that it basically ended up creating Milky Way and seeding consciousness. And the first place they decided to seed consciousness was in the Lyra system because the planets were very habitable. It was good for physicality. And so when the Lyran wars have started with the Draco invasion and the planets have been destroyed, the Lyrans had to go somewhere. So we did have ship capabilities, and some went to Pleiades system, some went to Sirius, and some went to Andromeda constellation, not the galaxy. Remember, the galaxy is like 2.5 million years away. So that's not somewhere you can easily travel anymore. So and when we did come to Milky Way, it was kind of one-way journey, knowing that at some point, actually, the two galaxies are going to merge, which they are. The scientists are saying in 4.2 billion years, these galaxies are going to merge. So it's a long game that was created here for expansion of consciousness. AN Zenithal system, and that's the true name of the Andromeda constellation. Andromedans usually mostly live on ships, just like Arcturians. The frequency of the Andromedans and Arcturians is somewhat close. They even look a little bit alike in terms of also very having like elongated heads. They're very tall and lengthy. And usually they reside in higher dimensional frequency bandwidth. So for us, because I'm very connected to my Andromedan parallel self. Her name is Liliani. I go on her ship. I sometimes, hang out at the ship. I go into like these pods. I rest. There's I can draw pictures of the incredible technology they have. And so and I participate sometimes in the Andromedan council meetings. They were always involved in seeding of Earth, just like Syrians, Pleiadians, but they kind of have more of an approach of just overlooking and overseeing, but not as involved like boots on the ground. So the reason there's only few Andromedan starseeds here is because of this overall, I would say, perspective of not being on the ground as much, but more kind of just overlooking from the far. However, I would like to say that on record, the information I've been receiving is that this new generation of children is coming from 2027 on, I would say even starting with 2026. And we've been talking about this new generation, but with the information I've received is that they all actually coming directly from Andromeda Galaxy. So there's new frequency that's going to be on Earth that is actually not even from the Milky Way, but directly from the Andromeda Galaxy. There's a new initiative to shift things here, to move it into higher vibrational bandwidth. And it's really interesting because I follow human design system, and when Ra channeled that system, he always said 2027 is when we're going to have the Wraith children. And he said their blueprint is going to completely look different than the human design of, the current star seeds. So it matches. It's really interesting. It matches what he said. And it makes sense because they are going to be completely different. They're going to be much more empathic, much more telepathic. They will really help elevate the frequency, but what is going to be hard for them is to manage this density, because this is going to be very new territory for them. So there's huge, we always talk about, these waves of volunteers. I would say it's more like assignments. They're all on assignments to help shift 3D into, to Tara. So the shift can happen and they can help hold the frequency here. So that's going to be a huge shift, because they're not even star seeds per se, as we know from Milky Way. They come in directly from Andromeda Galaxy. I think you muted, Neil.
All right, here I am. So I'm going to share with you a cosmology that I came to me a while ago, and I want to get your input on this, because what you shared about like the Andromeda Starseeds coming over, I had I don't know how it came to me over years of research and visions and things, that when you kind of finish a loop within your galaxy, you have an opportunity to either move to another reality and do something different. You can come back and start all over, and it's like, we exist within constructs within constructs within constructs, right? Or cycles within cycles, or games within games, and every game that you're in has its own set of rules. Third dimension has its own set of laws and regulations. Fourth and fifth have their own, and then you expand to bigger data sets, more information to play with. And when you get closer to the center of the galaxy, it's almost like the frequency is forced to increase, because literally your planet cannot survive in the third dimension. Humans can't survive because the vibration is so much. So technically, it's a physical reflection of what is actually happening to us spiritually. The frequency increases. And I thought that maybe when we get to the center of the galaxy, souls, after they transition from there, could go into the black hole and then make their way to another galaxy. And that's like the ultimate game, you know? So what are your thoughts on that? Have you ever had any
Yeah,
insight on it?
that's a great question, because I've been contemplating about that too. And to, in the context of like the matrix and in context of entropy, to understand creation as a whole. And, if you think about the source, and source has, separated itself to experience itself. And all these civilizations, and let's just start with co-create beings that are coming from these different universes, and they do and then seed in life in different templates across different universes. What's the point of all this seeding? Because it's like, think of it like a tree that is branching off, branching off, branching off. So it's all universe, not just this one, but many others expand, 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 and then contract. So then they collapse it all, and then they start building another branch. And so from that perspective, yes, there is the beginning and end to the game, as you said, because ultimately we do reach a threshold where there's no more expansion that can occur. And so it needs to contract back in. So I think part of this learning that we experience in the Milky Way, in this density, is why Andromedans even created the Milky Way, because they could only experience physicality here. The level of physicality they wanted to experience is not available in Andromeda due to its current frequency. So this is all a game. This is all experiment of consciousness, and we are constantly uploading and downloading information, and it does, I feel, to the place where we exit out. And so I guess the question is, where do we exit out? Who is controlling the game? So and so there's many, the movie Matrix, I think, had a point of, this is also energetic farm of sorts, in order to keep the creation going. Because the thing is, when you separate from the source, you don't have that original source energy. So you have to create energy in some ways or another. And so for many, who've been here for a long time, I know I hear a lot from, so especially from first wavers, they're like, we're so done here. We just want to exit out. We just want to,
Oh my God,
get down
yes.
with Earth, because it's just heavy, so heavy.
Yeah.
And for some who've been in Naturu galaxy, that's actually Milky Way's name is Naturu. who've been here for so long through galactic wars, through all the trauma and drama, they even done with the Milky Way, So they want to experience even another universal consciousness altogether. So that yes, there's, I feel, different layers, different games that we play, and the more we start being aware that this is one expression, this current avatar self is one expression. But what is important, I think, in this lifetime for us is to be aware of these other aspects of ourselves and bring them and integrate them all into this avatar, primary avatar self. Because by pulling, so what I've been doing this last year or so, helping people to really clear their galactic traumas, because actually you might not be aware, it feels like we're only looking at the past lives on Earth, but those galactic traumas from the wars are actually still within our blueprint, because the soul is still carrying them. So as I've been records for others, it's always stuff comes through from invasion and Lyra. There's a lot of that, abandonment, and then the whole victimizer programming that has started. So unfortunately, we started here in the Milky Way through the wars, fragment, fractalizing, distorting this, the original source energy. And so at some point, this is the densest it can get on Earth, and I think we are kind of back into clearing it all out and leveling it back up into wherever we need to go.
Yes. Interesting. Because one of my questions that I was going to ask, but you just answered it, was what are some galactic traumas and how do they manifest on Earth? And since you just went through it briefly, I just want to reiterate. You said abandonment and victimizer. Those are two things that we have brought down to Earth, and makes sense. Maybe you want to
Yeah,
elaborate.
that's one of the main ones, but there's many others. So it depended on the star system, the soul has experienced, and participation of the soul in that experience. So since with Arcturians, no one really talks about the fact that they were actually involved in the galactic wars as well. So some of the clearings I've been doing recently, I have been seeing them actually on the ships battling the Dracos, and the ship would be, for instance, completely vaporized. There's like this one meeting that I did where the ship was literally trapped between these beams of light, and the whole ship got completely vaporized and fractalizing the souls. So you never really think about, because they're like ambassadors of the galaxy, and they very frequency, friendly, and they help usually attune people. But you don't really hear about that they actually might carry some of that trauma too. So I think the war as a whole, the Lion Wars and the Orion Wars, have impacted many star seeds in one way or another, especially if they were involved in any kind of academy, or battleships, or any of that. So it's ingrained, I feel, within the galaxy, and we definitely have that within our DNA, because we over 25, 30 races. So that, yeah, the trauma, the drama, the narcissism, programming, the victimizer are the prevailing ones, and abandonment. And I would say, in general, there's this feeling of separation from the source, separation from the family and community. So in Lyra system, like in the movie Avatar, the third movie just came out. Every time people watch it, they feel this resonance, and because it was this beautiful paradise planets that had community, had the tribal feeling. It was all about taking care of each other. They're very agricultural and very planetary based. So there was deep connection to the planet. And just like in the movie, consciousness of the planet talks to you, and the whole society was about connecting to the planet, and they didn't separate between themselves and the planet. And I think that's what's missing here. And back to that is like rebuilding those ancient roots with the consciousness of this planet. And because she's evolving too, she's a teenager. I see her like 14 years old, right? And she's also asking the questions like, who am I? what's my journey here? Like she's in that phase, if you have a new teenagers, they're all like in that rebellious 14-year-old where they're like, okay, what am I going to be? And I feel that's kind of the journey we're going through with her together, because we've asking those questions for ourselves and she's asking as well. And we collectively moving through that.
Right. So beautifully expressed. Now, there's a lot of conversations about timelines collapsing. I would love for you to get into now what does it mean when a timeline collapses, and how does that represent the ascension process? And also, as a two-part question, are there anything happening on the galactic level right now that maybe humanity is not fully yet understanding?
Hmm. All right. So timelines for me, well, time, let's just back off, is something that is a concept more or less in the 3D reality, 4D that we in. Time does not exist in the same way in other higher dimensions. I more see them like as bubbles, of reality, and time as we perceive it linearly is really not linear, right? There's no real time. It's more of an illusion game. So it seems like there is time, but it's all existing simultaneously. So from that perspective, but there is still, when we talk about highest timeline, right? There's still trajectory that is happening. And in some ways, it's like we play in a movie. The movie has been already shot, but there is different versions of the movie. So it's which movie are we picking? Which one are we making sure is actually going to be the one that's going to progress forward? Because there's so many potentialities going back to the quantum field. We in constant what's called superposition. So there's many different potentialities in the field happening simultaneously, but there's only one that actually moves forward, and that's the timeline. Versus the others, just other waves, they collapse. So the ones that we pay most attention and intention to is the one that is actually prevailing forward. So the timelines that I'm seeing right now, everyone talks about bifurcation. And I'm going to give a new concept I've been seeing. It's more actually trifurcation. There's three timelines that as humanity we're looking at right now. So there is the 3D Earth, as we know right now, and the 3D Earth that is not going to move forward. So it's people who are not doing spiritual work. They're not interested. They kind of in the ego self. And within this timeline, I know we all talk about AI, and it's a whole rabbit hole that I'm going to open up. But I do believe that AI is actually part of this 3D timeline, because AI is not very interested in having us move forward. AI is all about, if you remember the movie Star Trek, the Borg. Do you remember the Borg, Neil? The Borg came, and what was it interested? It was interested in assimilation. It was not really interested in so much about how they're going to move forward in their civilization progress. It was at the end of the day interested in consumption. So from my perspective, if we just focus on AI, that's very dangerous, because AI here is actually to ultimately assimilate us. And from my perspective, that's the 3D timeline. So yes, it's helping us right now here, maybe to give us perspective and some mirror. Ultimately, that's not our highest timeline. Then there is the second timeline, which I call kind of the false ascension timeline. That timeline is, there's a lot of, people even in New Age community, and it might be a little comfortable to hear, but there's like a lot of small mirror, a lot of gurus, a lot of prophets, a lot of people who kind of just doing what I call bliss traps work. So they're only looking at the light. They're not really doing the shadow work. They're not really going deeper into understanding of who they are. So from my perspective, that's false ascension timeline. It's not a timeline where you empowered to move forward or exit this matrix reality altogether. I know we talk about ascension, but really the third one, the highest timeline, I don't call it ascension, I call it inscension. So it's actually not moving somewhere outside of ourselves. It's all about moving back deeper into the pool of our heart, deeper into understanding who we are. Our DNA has the capacity, our womb, to connect us deeper into the universal structure, into this universal time matrix. And so through the ascension, that's how we actually exit out. This is where we find sovereignty. This is where we find empowerment. This is where we truly connect to the source of creation. And so the work we have to do, and what I think from the highest timeline, is ascension work, where it is to go deeper and deeper into the essence of who we really are. And
Yeah.
then I think there was one more question. I'm trying to
Yeah,
remember the second
the
part.
other question was, is anything occurring on the galactic level right now that humanity maybe doesn't fully understand?
Oh, wow. Yes. Well, galactically, universally, actually, there's recoding that's happening right now in the universal time matrix. So it actually moved through most of the dimensions, and it just reached the fifth dimension about a week or two ago. And so there's full recodement that is happening. So a lot of the distortions that I talked about, that's even within the Milky Way, a lot of these system and architectural hierarchies that are holding this creation together are actually being recoded right now, because it did reach, unfortunately, a pinnacle point where it just got so distorted that there was no light, full light penetrated the system. So there is kind of the cosmic mother is been redoing this work. So what does that mean for us? I think vibrationally, we will feel like a huge shift. And maybe some of us already who are tuned are feeling like time dilation, and we're feeling like this last few weeks, like something is shifted. And that's what's happening on the universal level.
You also shared about the false ascension timeline, and it's like I have come to realize that there are a lot of co-opted individuals within this community. And if you're going to, like, someone once told me just about the UFO community, UFO speakers, if there's anything that should be infiltrated in the world, it would be that, because it connects to everything. It connects to energy systems, power struggles, politics, spiritual control, organized religion, right? I'm not going to make just mention any names. People can do their own research. But even there was an email correspondence with Epstein and one of the most famous spiritual gurus just recently, you know?
Mm.
And so it's just a lot of these things are being uncovered. And I guess that's where our discernment has to really come into, right? Like, we have to feel
There's
into
many
it.
rogue groups, and I'll again go
Yeah.
on the record here. I know everyone loves Pleiadians, but
Rogue Pleiadian.
my own experiences have been also rogue Pleiadian groups, and I'm also learning that there's actually more rogue Pleiadians than those of the light. So I'm willing to also, like you said, like how do you discern, right? You have to discern, you have to look at the information, but also the resonance and the agendas. And sometimes those who put humanitarian, like for the service of humanity, for the service of earth, there's a bit of trickstery going on there too. You really have to kind of step back and really feel the energy, if that really resonates, including some channelers. We really have to be careful. Even famous ones, sometimes information just feels so off, and you're like, what is going on? Because you start feeling that you start feeling distortion. So I recommend everyone to, I call it like distortion meter. Build your own distortion meter. Just really feel into the information. Just because a person is channeling a group and it seems like they're all love and light, it doesn't necessarily always so. And also the information and how it comes through. Is it coming from the ego? Is it coming from the heart? Do you feel a little off about that channeling? We really have to, we've been kind of taking everything at face value because it's exciting contact, channeling. But I think from sovereign ascension perspective, we have to be really strong as sovereign beings, to stand in our boundaries, to stand in our truth as humanity, and not listen necessarily always to the agendas of others, because they're not always as pure as it seems.
Yeah, well, the age of the guru is over. It's the age of the self guru. So if I feel like just one of the things that I use as a yardstick to measure that is if somebody openly accepts guru and openly accepts following and being worshipped. If they openly accept that and you're unaware that it's really about teaching everybody how they're their own guru, you know what I mean? Like, that to me, maybe it's just in me. I can't follow somebody. It's just not in my bones, you know? And then what
Yeah.
you said about the rogue Pleiadians is very interesting because many years ago I heard a story of a rogue Pleiadian group that went and met Joseph Smith, the
Mm.
founder of Mormonism. Because if you look at Mormonism, he said straight up, he said that he got these golden whatever plates from angels from the Pleiades. And even Scientology has some of that connection, where it seems like there was a rogue group that went around and gave some universal secrets, but with this kind of distortion around it that led you away from your own inner light rather than towards it. All right. Can you hear me? Unmute yourself. You're muted.
All right, I got muted. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. What
You
did
got
you
me
hear what I said?
there,
Because
Neil. I
some
That's a lot. When I Anytime I start talking about these groups, and I don't know, I try not to give too much power to it, but
you
it
know,
does
something
happen
yeah, like
where
you're
things just
you're as soon as you're about to answer, your audio completely cut and then your video froze. Yeah, that
here
was
you
weird.
go.
All right, let's
So
pick it up from there, okay? Do you want to start from your response?
yeah, what we were talking about
I was
the
talking about
groups,
I
right?
was talking about the rogue group, the rogue
The
Palladians,
ro
and what they
the
did with
Rosalians.
Mormonism.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to go much down the rabbit hole who the angels are and who's controlling this, system of Earth. But what I can tell is that the Pleiadian, especially the rogue groups of Pleiadians, often kind of working, supporting the system of recycling of beings back to Earth. So, like, what we think are angels, sometimes actually it's this group that is kind of supported in of the Anunnaki, this whole, matrix reality. So yeah, I had my own encounters with them, and they were trying to hijack one of my portals. So it was really an experience. Neil, you there? I think you
Yeah,
got
I'm here
popped
now.
up.
I'm here.
For you.
Thank you.
So
You can hear me fine, right?
yes.
Okay. So thank you for sharing that. So let's and understand you don't want to go down that rabbit hole too far because it's about really what do we do with that energy now. So I'd love to get
Yeah,
into,
and some people might get really uncomfortable with that because
yeah,
I don't want to say it's everyone, because I think within every group there is the good and the bad. Just like on Earth, we have or like I'm thinking of New York City, we have different neighborhoods. You have Bronx, you have the Harlem, you have it depends which neighborhood and what is what. But
yeah,
it's just sometimes you really have to be discerning of who we talk to, and just when we put a blanket statements of like Pleiadians, it doesn't
true.
necessarily mean we interact in with the purest ones.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. So, and doing this work for so long, and you've done this as well. I've done this kind of work, and we've had connections with a lot of different people. And many times I've noticed that some people, they love and they stay within their higher level consciousness and the connection to the higher beings. And even after plant medicine ceremonies, stay at that vibration where there's no earth connection. So I'm curious to know how does one integrate galactic consciousness without disassociating from Earth?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's so important to integrate information. And haven't gone through a lot of planned journeys myself. I know exactly what you're talking about. And I have a lot of friends who just keep on, it's another bliss trap actually by escaping from being here. It's so important for us to be in this body. I'm big advocate. I do kundalini activation. I awaken the body. And so we the best way to integrate is receive the information and then really feel it in your body, feel it in your system. Where is it moving into? How is it shifting you? Doing practices that are needed to ground energy to earth, because as I was mentioning earlier, the work we're doing is personal, but it's collective, and it's also for her. So we have to be that bridge to move that energy from the galactic energy to earth, right? So where I use a source language, so just channeling that energy in a multidimensional way, bringing it through verbal, through spoken word, through dancing. We become embodied in this frequency. We become ourselves, and then we can hold that energy here for earth as well. So the more you just practice, and so it's not just staying in your mind. I think when it's just in your mind, that you're kind of out in the ethers, but like really breathe it in, doing the breathwork practice, bringing your heart it down to your legs, like just really feeling it in the body, in the most embodied way. That's the way to do it.
Beautiful. And so that was kind of my final question here is kind of you start speaking about it. Maybe we can go deeper. Many people obviously were awakening, right? Yet they still feel stuck, overwhelmed. I speak to people all the time that are all about this world, but they say, we're not ascending. Can't you see what's happening in the world, right? And so from your perspective, what's the like a missing initiation that somebody may need to be embodied in this awakening process?
Well, because they're constantly looking for validation outside of themselves, right? So they're trying to match their frequency to what's out there. But like I was mentioning before, it really starts from within. So the people have to really start with opening their heart. And when I say opening the heart, is really full unconditional acceptance of self, unconditional acceptance of the
Okay,
fact
so
that
let me
this,
just ask you on that then. So say
yeah.
that you've had a lifelong journey of your heart being
Mhm.
closed, your parents sucked, right? Or you felt that they did. You got your heart broken a couple times, your
Yeah.
partner cheated on you, right? How do you open your heart in those moments? How do you have radical self-acceptance?
Yeah. Well, the closest frequency to love
Yeah.
is what 526 is forgiveness, gratitude. So you have to go. And what's interesting, forgiveness, the word to forgive does not actually exist in the other dimensions. I had a moment, I was driving and I saw a deer on the side of the road that was, hit by a car. And I was trying to say in light language, please forgive me. And I couldn't find the words. And I was like, why can't I? And they were, oh, well, my house was like, there's no such thing as forgiveness. There's only compassion. So, but from human perspective, we are here to, start with forgiving yourself. Acceptance means forgiving yourself, bringing yourself to, shame, guilt are the lowest frequencies on the maps of consciousness by David Hawkins. I love that map. But then love, what you have closest to it is gratitude, you have forgiveness. And so as you shift closer to those and just taking the time to kind of be okay with what happened, everything is a lesson. So when I take people into like their past life regressions, let's say, they've done all kinds of things in their past lives. There's a lot of trauma, but as long as you bring it back into what was the purpose of this lifetime, what was the lesson for me, what am I here to learn and integrate, remembering that each of these experiences are just lessons for you to put into your toolbox and learn about yourself even deeper. And yes, they might be very difficult, some heartbreaks, some traumatic experiences, but you wouldn't be who you are today. You wouldn't be that phoenix rising from the ashes if you didn't learn about that, right? The versions of us, Neil, that we've created over time. I mean, just think about Neil 10 years ago, Neil 20 years ago. It's a completely different being. Even the names we go by are kind of you go by Arcturus, I go by Divine. Like we've evolved to these levels, right? My old nickname, when someone, I haven't seen it for years, uses that nickname, it doesn't resonate. I'm like, who is that person? That's not me anymore. So we constantly evolving and shifting. And a lot of it is, yes, acceptance fully of all of the experiences on Earth. And then the integration is why is it helpful to know other aspects of ourselves, these other lives, is because it gives us a bigger perspective. This is this little me, and then there's this big me. And how do we merge these two together to understand we just having one certain experience, but everything we're learning here is so compressed because we do have timelines and time, and we are able to upload and download this information. So our aspects are learning from us from being here. And that's why this particular variation of ourselves have decided to come to Earth and be in this very dense, difficult experience. So I think for me, it's like if we start helping people to see the perspectives and really reframe it from the victimizer program to more like, no, it wasn't against you, it was actually for you, then people start really feeling into like, oh yeah, actually it is. And then they sit with that and they process it. And that's like the shadow work, all the things you do to come to that place of gratitude and love. And then the minute you able to step in and anchor that love, that full self-love of self, everything starts shifting. You start seeing the world in different colors. You start seeing the suffering, but you also want to, transmute and alchemize for others the suffering, because we're not here to suffer. We're here to be our ultimate powerful gods and goddesses walking on Earth, which we have been, from the time of Lemuria and Atlantis. We're just full circle coming back to that.
Wow, great answer. Actually, that was awesome because I love what you said about forgiveness and how there is no forgiveness in those realms, just compassion. And I'm thinking about it
Compassion.
after forgiveness comes compassion for yourself and for others. But the forgiveness element is really third dimensional here because it's like we thought we did something wrong, so now we need to unwind that by deprogramming ourselves. And from
Yeah.
what, like, to
There's nothing to
summarize a lot of what
fix.
you said,
There's nothing to fix, because that's why even the
exactly.
word healing for me sometimes, like, sometimes I have problems with the word, although I'm using it too, but it's like, it's assumed something is wrong with us, that we in this perpetual cycle of healing ourselves. But if we come from the
Exactly.
framework of, oh my God, we incredible, Arcturian, Andromedan beings from other universal beings, they're already beings of light, but we just having these experiences in different systems, and this system just was dense. So, and we just collected all these other baggage along with it. There's nothing wrong with that, nothing is broken, and we're just here to reclaim who we are.
I love it. Deanna, thank you so much for being here today. I'd love for you just to close out with any closing message that you have, and then also share with people what's coming up for you and what you would like them to, what your offerings are, your website, and what's happening with you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Final message is, remember that you have all the gifts, all the potentials. You don't necessarily need to be born to be a psychic. All of them gifts are available for you. And that includes, channeling, that includes light language, source language, that includes opening Akashic records, that includes going into your past lives and connecting to your starseed origins. All of that is available for you in the quantum field of information. And you are quantum master creator. And so that's my message for you. And this is what I do. I'm reminding people, I don't see myself as a guru, a teacher. I see myself as just a facilitator for others to remember who they are. And I have really great new things coming on DannaDivine.com. Well, first of all, I have a masterclass that's coming up next week on 22nd, learning more about Kundalini awakening and why Kundalini is important to hold that light that you and I talked about and really integrate in our system. So really learning more about biology and the nervous system and how to activate that energy. I have a membership that is going to be available for people on a monthly basis to come to circles and do this kind of master classes with me in lives. So I'm kicking it off on 22nd. And I'm also having quantum healing practitioner certification. course that is starting March 2nd. So anyone who's interested to dive in deeper and then become a quantum healer and learn all the techniques, merging Akashic records to healing and trauma clearing and imprints and all the things that I do. So that's coming up as well.
Beautiful. Deanna, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for all what you've shared.
Thank you,
And I'm really
Neil.
excited for everything we're going to do together and to see you at the
Me
expo very
too.
soon too.
Yes, I'm really excited.
Me too. Okay, you take care.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. And, we have a minute left, and Joan of Angels, she's actually going to be using this same studio in about 2 minutes for another person. And she just came in the studio. She's in the back. And I figured, why don't we do something a little different and just bring her on in the end here just to say hi.
Hello, everyone. Very good to see you. As you can see, I'm at the pyramids right now. That's how I started my day. Good to see you, Neil. That was a great interview.
So we're going to close out with the New Living Expo. Do you want to say any words about the expo before we do the trailer?
Oh my God, I love the New Living Expo. This trailer is going to make you want to be with us, all of you. It's going to be very hard to not join us because it stirs your heart.
Yep. It's 3,000 people, 100 speakers, 125 exhibitors, and 1 million pieces of fun. It's going to be extremely amazing.
And multiple people you've known throughout time, activating your past life memories.
Well, it's also kind of like the convergence of all these events that have happened in the past, and how do we take it into the future? What does a conscious gathering look like for the future? How do we come together for the same kind of intention? That's the kind of the mission statement of this expo. So I'm going to close out with a trailer once again. Everybody, thank you all so much. Love you, and we'll check you next time. Bye-bye.
The world is changing faster than ever before, and within this evolution, a new consciousness is rising. At the New Living Expo, thousands gather to expand consciousness, explore new conscious technologies, ancient wisdom, and the future of human potential. Immerse yourself in 3 days of heart-expanding wisdom and mind-binding awareness, with over 90 speakers sharing tools to awaken your highest potential. 125 exhibitors, 3,000 attendees, awakened souls, unite in one powerful weekend of learning, healing, and connection. Experience transformation, connection, and the next chapter of human evolution. It is time for humanity to awaken. Join us at newlivingexpo.com.